Well, hello and welcome back to your virtual tea time. My name is Tori and I am one of your co-hosts today. We have a very, very special episode today. And I gotta say, this was probably exactly a year ago, Bobbi, that I reached out to my friend, Dr. Bobbi Lancaster. And I asked her, can you please come on the podcast, share your story? Let's talk about golf. Let's see where this conversation will go. And I think you were moving the next day, Bobbi. I mean, there was no way to sneak it in.
Yeah, it would be about a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
Actually.
So Bobbi came back into town and she's like, I'm here. Let's get something on the schedule. And I jumped at the opportunity. And literally the day after, I walked into the podcast studio and Sasha Graham was there, author, co-host of Sports Will Save Us All. And one of our mutual friends has been trying to hook us up for a long time. I mean, the emails, there's at least 4 or 5 emails in my inbox that he's like, okay, time for you guys to collaborate. And the timing was just perfect that within, I'd say about 3 minutes, I'm like, Sasha, I have this opportunity to interview one of my dear friends, Dr. Bobbi Lancaster. I told you briefly about her story. And I said, I would love for you to come on the show. I'd love to learn from you.
How long did it take me to say yes? Because I don't think you had finished your sentence.
Within a second. And because I think that we both recognize how special Bobbi is. And so I knew that you would just make this podcast episode even better. And I'm honored to be a part of it. So before we dive into Bobbi, Sasha, again, her podcast is Sports Will Save Us All. I'll have a link in the show notes. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Tori. I'm so happy to be here. And thank you, Bobbi, for being here today. It's a pleasure to meet you. As Tori mentioned, my podcast is called Sports Will Save Us All. It's available on all of the major platforms. So if you're hearing this on Tori's podcast, I would love to have you join our sports family as well by subscribing to Sports Will Save Us All wherever you listen. One of the opportunities that my podcast has given me is the chance to talk with people about things rather than just about people. And today's show is just a perfect example of that, because a quick Google search about transgender women competing in sports will give you a lot of very strongly worded opinions from all sorts of people, many of whom seem to have little to no firsthand knowledge or experience in this arena. But when it comes to the subject of transgender athletes, I think that most of us just want to be on the right side of history. And for those of us who have had such positive, impactful experiences with sports, this means inclusion. The idea for me of not allowing anyone to not play sports for any reason makes me very, very sad. But I recognize that the subject isn't completely straightforward, right? Women and men are different biologically. The testosterone increase that boys experience during puberty leads to an increase in muscle mass, skeletal growth, and it's not completely eliminated even after they go through gender affirmation treatments. All of this is to say that we have a lot to talk about today. I'm really happy that Bobbi is here, both as a transgender athlete and a physician. I think that you are in a unique position to talk about both of these subjects. So thank you again for coming on this very special episode.
Thanks for inviting me.
Podcast. So I was having a little trouble writing a bio for you that was going to be quick and succinct because you have done so many things. But then I found your X account, the formerly Twitter. It did the job for me. Family physician, champion golfer, human rights advocate, married, proud parent, writer, gardener, pianist, amateur biologist, and yes, a transgender woman. I want to start by talking about your childhood and the role that sports played. But before we do that, and I mentioned this off mic before we started, I really think that we need to talk a little bit about definitions of things like transgender and gender identity for our listeners who may be new to conversations like this one. So please jump in here if you have, anything to add to these. But I pulled these from GLAAD. Transgender is a term used to describe people whose gender identity differs from the sex they were assigned at birth. Gender identity is a person's internal, personal sense of being a man or a woman or a boy or girl. For transgender people, the sex they were assigned at birth and their own internal gender identity do not match. trying to change a person's gender identity is no more successful than trying to change a person's sexual orientation. It doesn't work. So most transgender people seek to bring their bodies into alignment with their gender identity. And this is called transition. As part of the transition process, many transgender people are prescribed hormones by their doctors to change their bodies. Some undergo surgeries as well, but not all transgender people can or will take those steps. And it's important to know that being transgender is not dependent upon medical procedures. How was that?
It's a mouthful.
I know, right?
I'll tell you.
We got there though, didn't we?
I think that pretty much is the definition.
Pretty much sums it up.
Sure.
So let's talk about your childhood. What role did sports play when you were little?
On looking back, it's probably the first thing that I excelled at. I remember I was Bob, little Bob back then. And I grew up in a very small town, Ridgetown, Ontario, Canada. And I just was a gifted natural athlete in everything that I tried. So we had field days back then. I wonder if they still have field days.
I hope so, because that was the best day of the year.
Yeah.
Was
By
field
far,
day.
right?
But even though I was maybe in grade 2 or 3 or 4, somewhere in there, because we moved away when I was in grade 4. But I was beating the grade 8 kids in running and high jumping and long jumping and triple jumping. And, well, there were some kooky things too, like wheelbarrow racing or whatever.
But triple jumping,
But
that one is so hard. Alternating feet.
I was ambidextrous, and I just seemed to have a knack. I wasn't big for my age. I was wiry, quick, and I loved winning those ribbons. It was ribbons. And then there was the grand champion ribbon. Like if you won enough first places, then you get something that it looks like the things that people, when they win horse contests.
Oh, yeah.
Or something like that. Great big frilly thing. I brought those home to my mom and dad, and I was so proud. And so that gave me a lot of that was my reputation. And I was like the school athlete. It wasn't about, academics then. In fact, I got put behind because my writing was so poor. You had to make circles. You had to hold a pen in a certain way. I think it was the Palmer method. And then you had to practice printing, and there was a circle and sticks. And I just couldn't seem to get that. So I had to go redo that. So I was not an awesome student.
You were eventually, though.
Oh, yeah.
You were eventually. I mean, maybe the circles and sticks gave you trouble, but I think that you came around.
But as time went on, it was not just the field day. Then it was, being on the Catholic Youth Organization, CYO. They had football teams in grade school and pre-high school era of my life. So it was the hockey team. It was the football team. It was the soccer team.
Well, I was going to say you're Canadian. You must have played hockey, right?
Oh yeah, hockey. I was left wing.
You were?
Yeah. I was always very quick, and I had long arms and good hands. So I would be the what would you call it now? The wide receiver, the flanker. I could fire down the field and run some pattern and then just catch anything. If you got it anywhere near me, it's like I had glue. I love that. And then, but you'd play both ways because this wasn't varsity. This wasn't big deal stuff. This is like pre-high school,
Yeah.
But you played both ways. So then I was a defensive halfback. So if anybody happened to break through, well, they weren't going to get past me because they couldn't outrun me. And a lot of it was flag football. So I could catch them and pull their flag out of their pants, So yeah, they were just great days. I loved the team stuff. I learned a lot about being a teammate and pulling for each other. And that exhilarating feeling that you get from being part of a team and all the excitement when you won something. I
read something that you played golf with your dad and that was one of the places that you really connected.
Oh, yeah. We didn't connect at all, except there. My father was a Second World War vet. He was a U.S. paratrooper. He was born in the States. I was born in Canada, but he was born in the States and then moved to Canada as a young person. So, but yeah, he was a Second World War vet. He was a drill sergeant. He basically, especially my younger brother, Ron, he's 2 years younger than me. We were basically troops, I think. We had chores. We had things that were expected of us. We would march into yes, dad, no, sir. We won't do that again, sir. Like that was
Not real touchy-feely.
It wasn't touchy-feely, but that was my dad. And he exacted a lot out of both of us. And my brother tended to disappoint him more than me, so he had the worst of my dad's anger. Let's put it that way.
How was it different on the golf course with your dad?
Well, he asked me if I wanted to come along. And by then I was probably about 8 years old. And I had a paper route. And I had an enormous interest in butterflies. I mean, everybody loves butterflies, but I was nuts about butterflies. So I was collecting them. I was studying them. They bought me a little microscope, a primitive microscope for Christmas. I love being outdoors. And so he wondered if I wanted to tag along. Now, I couldn't bring my net. It was Ridgetown Golf and Country Club. And so sure, I'll tag along. I didn't know the foggiest, but there were birds, there were butterflies. There was a fox I saw. I mean, I'm outside and it smelled so good. And I was with my dad, where it wasn't like yes sir, no sir, whatever. And he was introducing me. This is my son, Bob. And you didn't go in a golf cart, then you walked the course. And so Ridgetown Golf and Country, it starts out with a par 5. I mean, how you remember these things? Because what are we talking, 65, 66?
And
I can remember the holes. I wasn't a member there. I never played there much. But par 5, second hole is a par 3. And I remember him on the tee, and he hit the ball. And all of a sudden, he's jumping up and down. Everybody's jumping up and down. He'd never had a hole-in-one in his life. And he'd had a hole-in-one.
Oh, my gosh.
And you were there.
And I was there, and I became this like good luck charm for him. It was like that just, and so that was the happiest I think I'd ever seen my dad. He was just, and I was part of that. I saw a different side of him and saw him interacting with his buddies. And so, yeah, I started to tag along a couple of more times, but I wanted to start to try my hand at it. I was 8.5 or 9 then. So he gave me a couple of clubs, like cut down things. And a couple of old balls.
Because you were so little? Is that what you mean?
You cut the clubs down.
That's so sweet.
And so I had a putter, which I've still got, and I don't have the cut down driver. And then he would go to work, but he would drop me off at that course. And there was another Bob there who was the son of the owners of the golf course. And so young Bob and I, these 8.5 or 9-year-olds, we'd go and whack balls, and we'd go and no lessons, no nothing. We would just go and hit the ball around. We wouldn't be allowed onto the big course or something. But I just loved that. I just loved being out there and my dad picking me up and then following him around sometimes. Yeah, that was a really good time for my dad and I.
Yeah, it sounds magical.
It was.
That ability to connect with somebody through sports, I think, is, one of the things that makes them so wonderful. You have described this time in really up until, your 50s as not living your most authentic life.
Yeah, I didn't use those terms. I'm not living my authentic life. I'm 8 years old and I know I'm hiding. Well,
tell us about that time. Like, what did the 8-year-old you think?
What I thought then is that I'd see, we'd go to the Santa Claus parade or something, and I'd see the majorettes, and they'd have these boots on with these tassels, and I loved their outfits, and I really wanted that outfit, And then I really, even though I played sports with the boys, I really would have preferred some of the sports with I wanted to do that double Dutch skipping, but they never let me do double Dutch.
I don't.
Jump roping?
Jump roping, where you jump, somebody's twirling, they're holding onto the rope and you do this. And then you get in and you jump.
Yes.
But then you can do double, where you can have 2 ropes, and then it really gets complicated. And the girls could do that, and I wanted to do that, and I wanted to join in. And I also wanted to do hopscotch with them. You draw chalk on the sidewalks and you do all that stuff. And there was something that they did with paper where it would be like.
Oh, yeah. It's, what is that called?
Yeah, those little, they're almost like little fortune tellers or something.
Like origami.
I wanted to dress like them because I thought it was pretty, and I wanted to do things that they were doing. But any hint that I made to them that I'd like to, there was like a no from them, from the girls. And I sure wouldn't have wanted to be caught doing that because, well, I was supposed to be playing with the boy stuff, and I was the oldest in the family, and I'm Bob. But there was one neighbor, her name was Crystal Clinton, and I would go to her house, and her parents were gone, my parents were at work or something, But she would let me wear clothes. And boy, this is like a dream. Mm-hmm. It was all innocent. And it was all innocent, but I still felt like I'm doing something I don't want my dad to find out about this. But I just felt comfortable that way.
You knew that it was a little risky, but it still felt right.
Felt really right. Mm-hmm. It just felt that this is how I should be. Now, I didn't want to be her because she was the weirdest, freakiest when I look back. Crystal, Clinton, we'd go for walks. And you go, if it rains, there's worms on the sidewalk. I'll gross you out here, but she would pick up a worm and eat it.
Oh, Crystal.
Yeah. And we had a falling out because I had her at my house and I had a pet turtle. In those days, you had these little plastic things with a plastic palm tree with a little plastic rock and you put your little painted a real turtle.
Yeah.
And you'd feed it little flakes and she grabbed my turtle out of the thing and she bit the leg off my turtle.
Oh my goodness.
So I often wonder what psychiatric hospital she resides in.
Right.
I don't know where but there's something wrong with her. She'd eat gravel too, or dirt. Like I think it's called pica. Or pica, or there was something odd, but she let me use her clothes. And so that was great. And then I'd go to the farm and help my grandpa. I love being on the farm. I would go probably from the time I was 9 till I was 15. Every summer I go for a month because my mom came from a farm family. And they had the old farmhouse that my mother, I was in my mother and her sister's bedroom. And some of the chamber pots were still there, like against the wall. They now had modern plumbing.
That's wild.
But while I was there by myself, helping Grandpapa, like a French Canadian, my mother's French Canadian, hoeing, suckering tobacco, picking tomatoes with my other cousins. But I would stay because they'd all go to their homes. I was the guest.
It's interesting because hearing you talk about your childhood, it feels like, this examination in opposites. On the one hand, it sounds really idyllic, like you really excelled at so many things, with the exception of, maybe your experiences with Crystal, but that sounds a little freaky, but everything else, that it sounds like you were really athletic and that you had this lovely childhood, but at the same time, there was something that you felt was really, really not right. At what point did that start to come to a head?
Probably somewhere around 13 or 14. I would go to the farm, as I was saying, and upstairs in the dressers, it was like a time machine. I mean, my mother's clothes as a kid were there when she was like 8, 9, 10, 11, 14, 15, and her sisters. And I used to dress up in them. I mean, papa and mama. My French grandparents, they weren't in that room. Nobody was going to disturb me, but that was like where I could really be myself, but still felt that this is, and then, you're old enough where you start to hear adults talk and they talk about somebody that's like maybe queer. They make fun of somebody who's light in the loafers. Wasn't that the term that was used back then? Or gay or whatever, but they always talked about people, and I thought maybe that's what I am. I don't know. I had a crush on a girl, Mary Field, but I knew that maybe I'm one of these people. I'd heard about people that dress up too, and they entertain like drag queens. Is that what I am? I don't know, but the adults that in my world, they made fun of people like that, and coaches, made fun of people like that. And in not very pretty terms. So I knew that even though maybe I am one of those kind of people, I don't want to be made fun of. I don't want to be known for that. I want to be known for the star in the team, or the golfer, So I was just hiding and kind of confused as to what I was going to turn out to be.
Well, and it was further complicated because you grew up in the Catholic Church.
Oh, yeah.
Correct?
Very Catholic church. I was altar boy. Oh, yeah.
So at some point, you actually told a priest what you were experiencing. And how did that go?
Went really yummy. Yeah, I remember wanting to talk to somebody about this whole thing because I wanted to, can you help me? Have you ever heard of this? Have you ever heard of a person like me that really feels like I just want to dress as a girl and I think I'm a girl? And, even at that point, my brother, I was 14 then, probably 14. My 12-year-old brother was starting to get a beard and he was getting more hair down here and I wasn't. And I thought, darn, I bet there is something different about me. Maybe I'm not going to do that. Maybe I'm going to turn into a girl.
Be validated.
Yeah, I was late blooming, which allowed me to grow, kept growing. My epiphyses, the growth plates didn't close like my brother did. He ends up being 5'9". So is my other brother. My dad was 5'8" or 9". I mean,
and
but no, I kept
6'1".
6'1". It's like, you should see our family pictures. Bob. And then, so I thought there's probably something different about me, and I want to see who can I talk to? And I figured it would be that priest. And it was going to be safe because it was going to be in a confessional. It would be dark. I wouldn't really have to look at somebody to say, look, have you ever heard about this? So are you Catholic?
I was raised Catholic.
Yeah.
Not practicing anymore.
I wait my turn, and I'm getting more and more nervous, kind of like I am right now. The usual Bobbi cold hands. And I finally, it was my turn, got into the confessional, and it's all dark. And then I could hear the little partition slide open. Now it's my turn. Because there were 2 booths, and he'd handle one person and absolve them of their sins. And then he closed that little partition. It was all in the dark, though. And then he'd open this partition, and I'm on the other side. And then it's a little routine you do. You weren't raised Catholic?
I was not.
So what you do then is you say, bless me, Father, for I have sinned. It's been a month since my last confession, or whatever. These are my sins. And then at that point, it was like, well, I didn't have any sins. Well, I guess we all, but I said, Father, I just want to talk to you. Okay. Just talk to me. I feel like I'm a girl, and I feel I like to dress in girls' clothes. And can you talk to me? Have you heard about this before and all that? And so I could hear all this kind of shuffle, like changing positions and clearing the throat and all that stuff. And I'm really going to listen to. And then that's when it probably was a minute or 2 pause. And then that's when he told me that my thoughts weren't right and that they were sinful. And I'm supposed to put those out of my head. I'm not supposed to think about this anymore. This is wrong. You're wrong with God in this thing. I forget all the exact wordings, but that was the gist of it. And then for your penance, because I was sinning with these thoughts, for your penance, you have to do so many prayers. Usually if you went in and you told the priest that, I stole a candy bar. Oh my God. Then for your penance, he'd absolve you of your sin. Don't steal again. And then he'd give you say 1 prayer. Well, no, this time he gave me a whole bunch of prayers because there's obviously a big sin in my mind. So I went out of there, and then you're supposed to kneel down and then, this routine, and then say your sin, and then you leave the church. Well, I wasn't going to kneel down there and say 40 prayers or something because people would know I've done something really wrong. So I just left, and I got on my bicycle, and then I just started to cry. I'm sorry. I don't talk about this much.
It feels...
But I just started to cry because it's like nobody'd ever told me that there's something really wrong with me.
Sure.
That I'm a bad person. I'm sinful. And so that was horrible to be I was defective or something. I'm sorry.
Don't apologize.
Hearing the story and, being able to so clearly picture that entire scene, I've been in those confessionals, and I kept thinking about how different it would have been if that priest had said to you, God doesn't make mistakes. You're perfectly made.
Yeah.
And whatever you're going through, there's a reason that God intended this for you, and how different your life might have been if that's what that priest had said to you that day, instead of this misunderstanding of what you were going through and who you were and what your life held. I wish so much that that's how it had gone. In spite of all of this person.
I wish it didn't. He's a product of his time, and he didn't say that. And I think the emotion's kind of gone. I mean, I'm sorry. I didn't think that would happen because that's so long ago. But obviously it had an impact. But boy, was I ever determined now that nobody's going to find out about this part of me. Nobody. And so I hid from my brothers and my sister and my parents and my first wife. Although I confided in her at some point, then she knew that this is just something she didn't understand it. They didn't use terms like transgender then. They used terms like transsexual or transvestite. Something perverted about it, where you dressing up and then you get all sexually excited because of looking at yourself as if you're a woman, and then you masturbate, and then that's that. And it's a whole that exists. There's people that are they have a fetish of some sort, but that wasn't me at all. That doesn't describe how, this is not a sexual thing or a turn on for me. This is just how I felt more comfortable. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I just, other than Mary Jo, and she says, don't you ever tell my parents. Don't you ever let it. So she was part of the hiding too.
And she was your first wife.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, in spite of all of this turmoil and...
Would you have left me? Because that's not fair. But we carried on. And it was our little, inside our marriage secret. Mm-hmm. And then I... finished medical school and went on to blah, blah, blah. And we had 3 kids. Well, we had troubles. I never was too good in that sexual department. Even though you can imagine I would be so good.
Funny.
I wasn't. I would rather have been the recipient. I would rather have been the kind of the female.
I mean, you had a lot on your shoulders too. I mean, there's stoplights and there's green lights. And there were a lot of stoplights that were happening in your world. Mm-hmm. Right? I want to go back just a little bit because
not again.
No, I promise. This is just about successes because in spite of all of this turmoil, you were really successful through high school and college. Right? So at McMaster University, you majored in honors biology. Mm-hmm. You captained the men's varsity golf team, led the team to 2 championships in the early 70s.
Championships. Yep.
Tell me about those.
And
I'm going to have Tori take over for this part because golf is not my sport.
Yeah. I started to caddy, backing up before university. I started to caddy at a private golf course in Canada where we lived, Hamilton Golf and Country. You maybe have heard of it. It's a par 70. H.S. Colt was a famous, architect way back in the day. So he designed this golf course. It's over 100 years old. They are playing, it's on that Canadian Open rotation. So this year at Hamilton Golf, they're playing the Canadian Open.
Oh, really?
Rory
Okay.
McIlroy won it the last time it was at Hamilton Golf. And before that, I forget who won it, but Furyk, I think, won it. But the Canadian, it's a Canadian Open. It's a U.S. Open type venue. Just like tree-lined, tests every club in your bag, up and down, sideways shots. It's a fantastic layout. It always is ranked in the top 10 golf courses. If you look in Canada where, there's Hamilton Golf. That's Bobby caddied there.
Yeah.
So, my dad got me better clubs, used clubs. They were Tommy Armour Silver Scots. They were blades. And I'd be about 14 and a half or 15. And in that Hamilton Golf and Country Club, they had professional caddies. They wore bibs back in the day. We're talking 1964 or 5. Mm-hmm. And some of these guys, they were grown men and some teenagers too who caddied there. They could play. Here I come with my running shoes and couldn't afford balls. At least I had these used clubs. But the balls I would play with, after I'd caddy, I'd go out on the course and find the best balls I could find. That would be my tournament ball. And I couldn't afford a glove, didn't have golf shoes, and I had sweaty hands like I've got right now. So I would always be finding a dirty place, like a pathway or something, and just rubbing my hand for some grit so I could hang on to my grip. My grips were filthy. After I'd play a tournament, you should have seen the keyboard of a piano after I'd play in a competition. Because I was but that's a whole different. So I won the caddy championship. I won the caddy championship against these grown people.
How old were you at this point?
I was 14 and a half or 15. I shot 74 on this par 70, and we played from the men's tees. Like, that was something. And I remember they have a big banquet at the end of the year, and they invite a guest speaker in, and it was George Knudsen that year. Have you ever heard of George Knudsen?
I have not heard of George.
Mo Norman. Oh, gosh.
Mo Norman. What a great name, though.
Yeah. You see him all the time. He's long since dead. George Knudsen. George Knudsen won the Phoenix Open and the Tucson Open. One of the best Canadian players we've ever had. Mo Norman. Well, that's a whole different story.
Yeah.
See, I'm showing my age. But it would be like having Scotty Scheffler come to the caddy banquet.
Yeah.
And then give you and speak and then give the award for the caddy champion of the year. And then I'd go up to Scotty Scheffler, let's say, or Jordan Spieth or whatever. And I was like awestruck. Mm-hmm. And there I am. And there's a picture of me with Jordan. So, but from there, it was like different junior tournaments that I could maybe drive my bike to or go with another parent, because my parents were both working and we didn't have money for like entry fees, much of. I could use my paper route money or maybe my money from working at the grocery store, and some used balls. But I'd show up and I'd have some success in these little junior tournaments or invitational things, or then the high school tournament started and high school champ. Like I could always, any level I played at, I would win. Not every time, but you don't win every time in golf. And then I went to McMaster University and got in their golf team, and then very quickly established myself as their number one. And then we led them, and I felt like I could bring the best out of the players too.
It seems like you had so much working against you. I mean, not being able to afford a glove and, what was your drive at this point? Was it just that you really, really loved golf, or was it an escape, or was it because you were good at it? It
just reminded me of something about Tori. Don't let me forget that thought. It was these guys that I'm playing with, they weren't guys, but in the junior golf or even at the university level, they've got no worries about their payments, like their tuition or their board. They can go play in all these tournaments and all that stuff. And it was almost like, I'm going to just beat their ass anyhow. It was that kind of a feeling of like
competition. Put
me in trouble behind a tree and I'm going to find out a way. And you with all your privilege and all your money and your fancy stuff, I'm going to beat you. That was just kind of part of me.
The ultimate underdog.
You're never going to get into medical school. There's 4,500 applicants for 75 spots. Oh, you want, tell me I can't do it. Which brings me to we were playing one day at Papago.
You and Tori.
Yeah. And I always liked Tori, and she's got a powerful swing. And I wish that I could have played Tori when I was it's like similar age, because it would have been, but she obviously is I'm on the downs and she's kind of on the ups. But here we met more than a couple times on the golf course. And she made some comment to me that you won't remember. Maybe you will. But you said, Bobbi, what's it like now that you can't play so good anymore? What's it like? Is it frustrating for you? Do you remember asking me that question?
I can see myself asking that. Yeah.
And so it's like, well, Tori, And so I give some kind of really nice, but as I'm walking along, I'm saying, you effer you. How dare you think that I still can't play? You son of a gun. And here I am. I was probably 66 at the time because I'm 73 now. So I remember getting on the next tee. It was a par 3. And I don't think it was actually the course Papago. It was some other course in some valley team or something. Yeah. I got in the next hole, and it was this, you couldn't hit it left. It was a par 3. It was about a 5-iron. And I was so steamed. And so by that comment, that's the kind of motivation, and maybe you've got your motivations or whatever, but it's like, I'm going to just stuff it here on you. And I did, and I made birdie and won that hole. And
you lit a fire, Tori.
Oh God, I just wanted to stuff on you. But that was this attitude that I had of if the Mayo Clinic, if you've been to all these places and they can't figure it out, that's right up my alley. Mm-hmm. I meet with these patients. I am a family physician, but I am a really good diagnostician. I'm a good communicator. My patients love me. I've got a great bedside manner. It's total. When I'm with my patient, it's like they know I'm there for them. I'm there for them here, but I'm here. Mm-hmm. I'm right there for my patient.
Your heart.
But when you give me something where nobody can figure this out, doctor, well, there you go. That's that same competitive
challenge accepted.
I'm going to figure this out. We're going to come up with some solution here. I'm telling you that right now. And we will. And we do every time. Doesn't mean I've got a cure now, but so I don't know where that comes from.
Do you think that drive in medicine came from your experience in sports, or do you think that those two things are more?
I think it's just me.
It's just you. Yeah.
I think it's just something innate about me. Mm-hmm. Although I often use sports as an analogy for things when I explain things to patients, or where we've often been in the rough together and they don't know what the rough means, or we've been. So you thought I was getting old, didn't you?
No, I think more the context of that question, because I'm surrounded by a lot of female golfers that played more seriously at some point, whether it was college or junior golf. And I see as they grow as the years pass, they can't be at the same level they once were. And I see that frustration. And I wonder to myself, are they still having fun? Is this sport still bringing them joy of some sort? When I see at times they get frustrated that they used to be able to execute that shot so much easier.
Yeah.
Or they're losing distance, you know?
Yeah.
Because I'm just me and myself. I've only had a short 15-year journey with golf, and I find myself doing that same thing. So I like talking to players about that because I feel like sometimes it is easy to lose the joy in golf.
Yeah. I would agree. I think probably I wasn't really being honest when I said that it doesn't bother me. I think I gave some kind of, no, I'm fine with this. No, I'm not fine with this.
Yeah.
This is hard.
Yeah.
And it's only gotten worse.
Especially when you're such a fierce competitor.
Yeah, because that was probably 66 now. Now I'm 73. And the joy is completely gone out of it. It really has... There's so many levels that the joy, one of it's the vision. I can't see a golf ball land. Half the time, I can't even pick it up after I hit it. I have to go complete. I've hit it fine. I can tell.
Yeah.
Or, and then I'm anxious. And then, did anybody see that? Did anybody get, and then they're saying, no, we were not looking at, and then I'm anxious and I'm wondering, well, I think it's going to be right, but it could be. And then I'm looking and then the worst of it is to hit that shot where I remember what it looked like, but where you were trying to like turn it in, because there's a bunker in the flag and there's a little, and so you're just trying to turn it in there and you hit that shot just like perfect. And it's going to land and spin and then get, what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah. And
to watch it do that, or to cut it and to watch it land and do exactly what you were planning. There's a joy in that.
Yeah, there is.
Oh my God, there's a joy in just watching the flight, and I can't see that. So the macular degeneration in my glaucoma has robbed me of I'm not blind, but I cannot see. I try yellow golf. So there's some joy gone there. And then watching the distance, I'll swear if I were 20 now with today's equipment, I would be one of those people that would hit the ball 340. There's no doubt in my mind, because I could hit it 285 with the old stuff, the balata balls and my wooden iomatic driver. I was one of the longest, not the longest, but I was. But the loss of distance is more than just, I think, frustrating. It's taken some of the joy, because my game was built around length, and I always was like great ball striker and had lots of length, and then we get down to the pitching, chipping, and putting, and it's like probably average. If I'd have had the whole game, I'd have been on the tour. But I didn't have the whole game. But now when you take away my distance, and now I'm left with this crappier short game, and now it's like I'm just been really kind of neutered now.
It's interesting because it feels like we're talking more about identity. That part of your identity was being able to hit the ball really far, right? Part of your identity is, of being Bob, but feeling like Bobby, that it's interesting that's where you are right now. I'm sorry that you've lost that joy though. It's the pits, isn't it?
It has been the pits. And that's been my identity too. If we get together, it rubs me the wrong way, and Lucy knows it rubs me the wrong way. But if I'm known in Hamilton, my old hometown, Hamilton, Ontario, where I went to medical school, and that's where my practice was until 1991. And then even when I moved to Phoenix, my practice is downtown at St. Joe's. The first thing, if you ask somebody, do you know Dr. Bobbi Lancaster? Oh yeah, great golfer. Have you ever played with Bobby? That's the first thing out of their mouth. And it was my identity, golf and Bobby. But it used to be like, but doggone, I'm a really, really good physician. Like I wanted to be known as like that, probably more than anything else. My patients knew. And now it's, I've lost kind of that identity, which at one time meant a lot, but now I've just replaced it. I just can't, I've dabbled with depression over the years. And that's just something I really try to stay away from and avoid. Any kind of thoughts around, oh, well, isn't this too bad? And I'm hitting it shorter and there's no joy in it. And Because it just seems to get me down into like this pit where it's where I've got to find something else. And now I always find something else. And now I've found that I am an incredible speaker, which I didn't know I was. I'm an incredible interpretive nature guide, which I never knew that would be part of. Like, I don't think that there's anybody. Now, if you ask people in Gold Canyon or, well, of course, up at the Arboretum, it's not, oh, Bobbi, have you been on one of Bobbi's tours? It's awesome. I mean, when I first started, I'd have 4 or 5 people. Then they'd tell their neighbors, and we'd have to start to there'd be 100 people waiting for them to lead them around the pathways at Boyce Thompson Arbor. So now it's, if you mention Bobbi Lancaster in Gold Canyon, it's like, oh, what an incredible, have you been on one of her tours? Did you know Bobbi plays golf? No. Did you play one time? They don't.
That's not,
it's just
that's
kind
not
of
your
like
identity for them.
Now I'm a tour guide.
Well, since you mentioned the Arboretum, let's talk about your book that's coming out.
Oh, it's out.
Oh, it is out. Oh,
yeah.
Tell us about the book, about the Arboretum. What's the name of it? Where is it available?
It's called Putting Down Roots. It's available on Amazon. The more I learned about the Arboretum, the more I fell in love with the fellow that started the thing, William Boyce Thompson. This is 100 years ago. He was a mining magnate, lots of dough. It's kind of a rags to riches story about him. But it's what he did with his money after he'd made it all that really impressed me. He could be ruthless. You couldn't make that kind of money in the mining business without being shrewd or without stepping on people along the way, being, opportunistic, manipulating the market, the copper market, maybe a little, But there was this whole other side of him that I fell in love with. There's the tenderness or the caring and caring about mankind. So I wanted to learn a lot more about him. And I was looking for books, and there's no book written about this Arboretum. And so maybe it's ego, but I thought, well, then I'm going to write it. So I wrote about the Arboretum. I did, the first chapters are all about the geology of why this is such a special place. And then I wrote about the Indian wars that took place in and around there. That's a whole interesting part of history, the displacement of those peoples. Sure. And then we get into William Boyce Thompson and his impact and why he created this place. And then what's happened since, because he died pretty quickly after he started it all. He had a stroke and passed away. And so that's what the book's about. And it's about, putting down ancestral peoples, putting down roots there in this welcoming place. It's about the fellow, his first director, Franklin Crider. This is 100 years ago. He was an expert in roots. He studied roots. Really? And what made some plants, they just had more tenacious roots. And they really could thrive in an arid situation.
This feels like a metaphor.
Oh, yeah. So he ended up helping solve the Dust Bowl.
Wow.
Because of his knowledge of roots and tenacity. And so...
survival.
Yeah. And then I think about my own roots and my own tenacity and my competitiveness and my ability to you put me anywhere and I'm going to find a way and I'm going to thrive. And so Papago. There's a place where I didn't feel like I thrived real well. When you talk about putting down, I was trying to put down roots. I'd left Hamilton and Hamilton, my beloved Hamilton Golf and Country, where I ended up joining. I was a caddy there. I was a caddy there and won the caddy championship. You heard about that. Then once I was a doctor and making lots of money, I could join the place. And then I very quickly became their club champion multiple times.
Wow.
And I've had this fantasy maybe 5 or 6, 8 years ago that, boy, wouldn't it be nice to join there again? And now I could win the women's club championship. And that would be a record that no one would ever be able to, because I was caddy champ, men's club champ, and now women's club champ.
Yeah, that would be a tough one. Yeah, that would stand for a while.
Never going to happen. But, where the heck was I? But I needed a new place. And I wanted to play with good players if I could find them. And so that was Papago. Boy, do you think I could put down roots there? Do you think I could break through in that crowd? They just seemed to... I never could find a partner that wanted to partner with me in some partner event. I never could join that foursome. They were already kind of all in their little pods. And from 2012 till I kind of slowly gave up. And then when I did win their club championship there a couple of times, I remember probably inappropriately making a little speech after the first time to thank everybody that was there for welcoming me. I know I'm a little different, but thank you, and I figured there would be something back, like, well, we love you, Bobbi. It was like crickets. And I never got the feeling that like I really fit, or that I did feel welcome though in team events, because then I could win points for them. But individual stuff, it was part of it's not their fault. But I think that they were questioning probably fairness of me competing against them. I was also wrestling with fairness too.
Let's talk about fairness a little bit, because it does get sticky, doesn't it? That, when I look at kids, pre-pubertal kids competing, Tori and I talked about this before, that I beat all the boys for a long time. And that then they went through puberty and they all, I'm not short, but I wasn't 6'1".
You just needed some testosterone.
Right. And I think that's my future, actually. That's the nice thing about becoming an older woman, right?
Oh, yeah.
The levels are always being checked.
Yes. There's lots of fluctuations.
No, but you're making testosterone in your adrenal glands, and your estrogen levels are going to go down, and then the testosterone will be unbalanced. Not very much, but enough to give you those nice little chin hairs that you see old ladies with.
Those started a while ago.
The little mustache, and then, Mom, you've got this, So, you get masculinized as you get older as a woman.
Right. Let's not talk about that part right now. Let's talk about, I have long argued that let kids play sports, let them play, according to the gender that they identify with, that I played with all sorts of kids growing up. And recently I feel like you always had a really nuanced view of yourself playing against women after you had transitioned, and that it seems like your opinions have changed yet again recently. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. When I did transition, that was about 2010. I'd been on hormones for about 3 or 4 years. And then I had my affirming surgery in 2010, still hid. I mean, I had breasts. Well, they were store-bought, not too big, because it might interfere with my backswing. Always worried about golf.
True golfer there.
I actually, since you brought that up, I do wonder, how did your body feel different post-transition? Meaning,
I felt right.
We talk about, but like losing muscle mass, like those things. How did
I loved it. I loved being skinnier. I loved not being as strong. I love the shape now, and now I could fit clothes better. My body just looked right. I could look in the mirror and actually look at myself without that who done it down there, like the who's it's. Like I never ever liked looking at that. It was stuck on me, but it wasn't right. I would tuck it. I would avoid looking at it in the mirror. I'd sit and pee like a girl, anything to just avoid. So that was all gone. This is really comfortable now. This is the way my body was meant to be. So that was that. But getting back to your question about fairness or nuanced or something. Yeah, I was concerned. I do not like unfair situations. I do not like bullying, teasing. I never have. I just recoil at it and I push back. So I question whether is this going to be fair or not for me to play, with women now. And playing, hey, let's just have fun, but competing. But the United States Golf Association said it was okay. And for God's sakes, I was 62 or 3 then. I'm old. My game is diminished. That's probably, and I could feel weaker. I felt like I think I'm okay. I don't want to be seen to have an advantage. But at Papago, I won the club championship. And honestly, I hadn't been playing. I had so much in my hands with my practice and then having my surgeries and hormones and all the transition with my family and friends and everything. I hadn't played much golf for 5 or 6 years. So I joined Papago in I remember it was February or something. And I was just, I didn't have anything. And then I think one of the players said, if you, there's the club championship comes up in April. And if you play 2 rounds and all that, then you could play in the club championship. And it's like, oh my God, that's kind of quick. And but the USGA gave me permission to play with their gender policy. And so I signed up for the club championship, and there was a couple of outstanding players that were there, the really good players. Kim Eaton is one of them. And so, of course, I go out and win.
Were the other competitors younger than you?
Oh, yeah. Kim is probably 15 years younger than me. 12, 13, 14.
I don't think that much, but what year are we talking? Just so I can put this in perspective.
2012.
Okay, so this was before you tried to go up for the LPGA and try to turn pro.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
So, I was just kind of back at the game now. She was never nasty about that. She congratulated me. She questioned whether, she says, there's something about the way that you can like pronate and close in that swing, and your hands are big and strong, and your flight is different than mine. And I was still probably hitting it. Oh, gosh. I would roll it out to 275 then, because I was 62.
Yeah, which is far. Yes.
I was 40, 50 yards past her off the tee.
Yes.
And so that just didn't sit well with me. Not because I was angry with her, but it just maybe, yes, everybody says it's okay to do this. And then there was another invitational I played in and I won it. And then there was, I think, one final one where it's like, I feel like I'm cheating. I feel like I've got an unfair advantage here. And I don't think I want to do that because I don't like the feeling of it.
When you were playing with the amateurs.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I want to play.
Yeah.
Because I just lost my jobs. When I transitioned, I said I had my surgery and all that in 2010, and my family knew and everybody, but my employer still didn't know. I was a medical director of 2 big companies. It was a ton of money, everything. And Lucy worked for the companies too.
Also a nurse practitioner, right?
Yeah. So our whole income was based around these. But I would go to work at, in the hospice company and see patients, or go to a medical director's meeting or whatever as Bob. So I would wear a blousey kind of thing so that you couldn't see my breasts.
So now you were hiding the other way.
Oh, yeah, this is ridiculous. So I would go there, and then I would come home and then go here's a patient calling. Then I'd go make a house call on a patient in Gold Canyon. But they now knew what had happened. They knew I transitioned. The local people knew. So then I'd get into some kind of a Bobbi outfit. But then maybe that night I'd have to go back into Phoenix to the hospice because we would be having some other meeting. Well, then I've got to put my khakis and my shoes on and all that stuff. And I did this until 2012.
It's exhausting.